And here we go with what is definitely their first real defeat, first major L in the series for the Eden Zero crew, because it's not just going to be for, any one character. It's really for all of them at this point, because Draken Joe was not somebody that they should have contended with this early in the series. It was definitely someone that had too much to really like output when it comes to a lot of these things. There's a lot of times in series where a character will meet up like some form of opponent that is beyond them at an early stage. You have Fairy Tail. You had Josei, but they had Makarov there and ended up fighting him. Naruto had like Orochimaru, and we know that if Orochimaru was serious, like during the Chunin exams, it would have been a much more brutal like slaughter on their behalf. One Piece when they were into Mihawk. There's always those characters that it's you see later on when you actually see their full extent of like when we like actually are able to like see again the vast level of one of these characters, and you look back and be like, man, the main cast was lucky that for their personal reasons they didn't decide to really just deal with them outright in that moment. And this is going to be that for Eden Zero, because up until this point the characters they've been fighting guys that are more of some obstacles, obviously, like so with the Kurenai's mech, but for the most part there haven't been any huge opponents. There hasn't been anything like massive that they were facing that was like an obstacle beyond their capability at the time. But the unfortunate side for them obviously is not like again someone with Josei, you had a character that was on your side that could contend with not the main cast, but they had an old veteran. Mihawk wasn't like really a bad guy. Orochimaru wanted to deal like we already know he wanted like Sasuke Sharingan and stuff. There are personal reasons for it. Draken Joe, though, unlike these other guys who were two villains and Mihawk's weird. He's kind of like he's more independent, but Draken Joe, he's an antagonist. I don't really know if I want to call him a villain, because he's more in it for profit and business, but he's a crime lord. He is a criminal. He's not a super villain. He's a crime lord. And the difference between them, is I think personally, I would say the level of influence is going to be a lot different, because with villains, they can have their own reputation, of just being something like, they're a very powerful enemy, you just don't want to mess with them. With Draken Joe's case, as somebody who's like a business criminal, and that's like we already saw earlier in the series, that his name means everything to him, his reputation, because for them, not only is he just not a powerful bad guy that you don't want to mess with, he's also, again, a businessman. His word, his name, everything around his, like, essentially just his image and everything that carries with it is important to him. And obviously here, when it comes to that, characters who he could see disrespecting him in some way, he's going to have to deal with. Now, in that, the difference is he is going to have, he doesn't want to kill them, as we know, but they're going to suffer, I'd still say, some pretty vicious outcomes. Because this chapter, for the most part, is really just laying out the difference like between them at the moment. And as I said in the last one, I don't really see a way for them to really get out of this unless like a bigger character arrives. And there are characters we know of that were obviously going after Draken Joe. He saw stuff already, like Justice and like their whole crew, taking concern over the Araxans, his Galactica, and Draken Joe. Anyway, I bumped up my throat there. But from there, we can logically say, like them and like we saw in Mirror and stuff too, that they could show up and cause problems, contend with them, and maybe not save them, but give them a chance to escape, give them a chance to get away, because maybe they've been planning out their own mission for a while, and as I said, we already know, like from Amira and stuff, that could already be set up. But other than that, like it was very heavily, like we got some stuff like laid out, like when you have Draken Joe talking specifically about
Cheeky's gravity. You know, you got this whole part of he's talking about like, you know, friendship. He's saying, you know, friends are like a social construct. You know, it's fellowship and empathy. He's like, those are, you know, worthless thing in the cosmos. Those are the most worthless thing around. Which, those are going to be his words to eat. Eventually, he's going to get that shonen beat down. And my guess is those words are going to come back to haunt him. Generally, like when, you know, you have characters who have this mindset, it's not just of, oh yeah, they lose, you know, the main character, you know, like, you know, the whole thing of like, I have more friends than you, I could beat you. Generally, when it comes to that, especially Hiroshima characters that say that kind of stuff, it comes back to really hurt them, such as like Grand Magic Games, Sting kind of having that motto, and then for a while thinking Lecter was dead, and then having Lecter held hostage, and really kind of showing that even though he was saying all this like fighting for your friends thing was bullshit, that was exactly what really he needed to do in order to become stronger. Whereas with Dragon Joe, I can see the way that he treats his people, because as we saw in the last chapter, they listen to him out of, I want to say respect in quotes, but primarily fear. I think when it comes down to it, like if it meant getting out on top and not, you know, and not dying, and all they had to do was betray Dragon Joe, they would, because they're criminals. And it would, I think it would resonate pretty like heavily in that idea of like, you could do all this, but if you don't have that, kinship even with your own crew, then the second they see something better, you know, they're gonna turn against you. But Shiki goes in, you know, he tries to use an attack on Dragon Joe. Dragon Joe turns his hand into that Draymore ore, you know, as we know, and, you know, just blocks it. What was interesting is when he's talking about Ziggy's gravity abilities, he calls it Satan gravity. So that, I guess, is what his power is going to be called. So we now have an official name for his Ether Gear, which is pretty cool. We haven't really had anything to go off of. We had that Thwomp Boy thing, but we did get something when he was talking about Master Noah, saying like, you know, you have the key to unlocking the cat, you know, in quotes, power, which I'm wondering if it has to do with Rebecca, because we know Rebecca has something special about her. We don't know yet, but as we've seen like from her channel, they're very cat themed, or if it has something to do with Happy Bot, you know, as his gun self. You know, he is a robot. He's made by the Old Man Weiss, who, as we've seen, is a very renowned scientist and inventor. And we don't know I don't remember if we actually got a statement of like his status, like if he's number one or whatever in, you know, some field. I can't remember off the top of my head. I remember, you know, he was obviously like a very smart, very like skilled guy. Maybe we'll find out like he's like the number one or something in the cosmos or something. But Shiki gets turned to stone. You have Pino going to try to use her EMP to disrupt it. The wind will not let her, as Jin is just pushing her back. And then we see like Dragon Joe like inside his base, you know, in seemingly I would imagine like some form of storage like area, maybe underneath somewhere near the sewers, as we see some like waterways and grates. But everybody in his crew, well, the main one, you got Weiss, Amora, Rebecca, and they're just all in front of Dragon Joe. And I look at this picture as the one that I'm using, and I'm more like saddened about Jin, because Jin, I would like to become a good guy, and like I said, I do like him. I think personally, one thing about this panel to note is, you know, when you look at like Dragon Joe and his like scowl, you look at Daichi, can't really get anything from him, and that like smile on Fee's face. But Laguna, oh, and Selp, she's kind of glaring. But with Jin and Laguna, they have this kind of like shaded over their eyes, and I don't think they really like agree with this. There's a portion like later where they're kind of like doing this, and Laguna doesn't really seem, he doesn't seem on board. Like he doesn't really come off as that cruel of a character. There's one panel when they're kind of like going over everything, and he doesn't really seem as pro towards all this. It's like right after he, you know, Dragon Joe crushes the medical drink that they were going to give to Weiss, and you have like the members of his crew, that's Element 4, like Fee and Daichi are laughing. Laguna doesn't really seem to, you know, find it funny. Sylph, though, we know that's just her personality. And then Jin, even though he's kind of like a darker guy, I don't think that he really approves of it too. He doesn't seem like an evil dude. Like, I don't think that he gets pleasure out of like cruelty. I think he just wants to do his job, and, you know, even though he might not agree with it, he's willing to comply just because we don't know the reason that exactly about what he needs to stay with his sister, but we know that, you know, do something. We haven't got the exact information yet. But now they're like in front of Dragon Joe, who's got guns from all his lackeys pointed at him, and See, this is again like another thing. Look at all his crew people. You got all these criminals, and the fact that he doesn't, as we've already stated, like he doesn't really see anything in friendship. And I don't mean like the shonen friendship idea. I mean in the idea of loyalty, because when it comes down to it, when you have like close friends, even if they're like close, like personal friends or close friends in like a business or whatever, it's their the loyalty to the people above them and around them that is really gonna be important after a while. Like if something happens, like say something happened at work, and I could help this person recover from this, or I could let them burn and just watch them as they kind of like fall apart and get screwed. And that's what I think is gonna happen to Draken Joe. I think that his crew is going to end up really turning on him at some point. Because of the way that as we've seen, they listen to him out of fear, and it's that constant like fear that is gonna hurt, like gonna end up like driving them away. Because when in the idea of it is, if you are I want to say not allied, you're employed. Let's go employed under somebody. If you're constantly afraid of them, you're gonna be looking if there's any possible ways of either out or overthrowing them in anything, in any kind of situation, in order to end that fear. Whereas if it's like respect and loyalty, you're going to want to help them with what they, whatever they're doing. And like I said, I think that's going to end up screwing Draken Joe over. One of the things, when it comes to a lot of this, and again, especially, and I want to say, not again on the emphasis of like, friendship and stuff. I think it's more on the emphasis of how exactly you treat your crew, especially in a series that looks like it's gonna have very very tight-knit crews. And especially if Jin, when you see him again, I still think he's gonna team up with Shiki, but when you have him treated bad, like I said, I think that when they see like how Shiki treats his crew, they're gonna want the same kind of more like happier environment, better way of living than a life of fear and like maybe not malice, but like an entire setup of like a corrupt way of mandation. I don't know. A very corrupt way of control. Let's just go with. But Draken Joe is like, he's discussing him. He ends up shooting Shiki in the leg because Shiki keeps like moving and getting mad. Like Shiki, you need to be a little bit more careful, buddy. You're gonna end up taking a few more bullets. Draken Joe even says like, listen, next one I'm gonna shoot one of your friends. And Rebecca, is just trying to figure out what happened with like Peanut Happy, and you have Draken Joe. He said he sold them to a junk dealer somewhere within his ship town, and everyone obviously is just upset. They're trying to figure out what they need to do, but Draken Joe wants to punish them for what they're doing, as they ended up coming onto his ship. But as that is all kind of like getting worse, he's like, we need to end up figuring out what to do with each of you. And he obviously recognizes Homura, he knows Kurina. He's like, trying to like hint at what she did to make money, and trying to do the same to Homura. Which, away from Homura, man. I really like you as a bad guy, but I'm gonna hate you if you do anything horrible to Homura. Then he's like, all right, let's figure out what to do here, and just tells Fee to cut off Wise's arm. Listen, here's two things I want to say about this, because usually when you get one of these setups where it ends on a cliffhanger, you end up, it's to kind of like think of, is it going to happen or how they get out of it? I think this is 100% going to happen. And not only for, I want to say just the straight out reason, first off, as we've seen, and I forgot about this, I didn't think about this until I was talking about it in my stream the other day, as we've seen with the old man version of Wise, he has one of his arms is robotic. He has a mechanical arm. So I'm guessing this is where he ends up losing an arm. This is where we're going to see -1 arm for Wise, and he's going to end up having to get a robotic arm. But there's also the fact that we don't know anything about Wise's backstory. We don't really know anything about him. And there's this, it's not like a rule, but there's this belief I have when it comes to like an idea of like stories, is that if you didn't have like some form of dark point in your past, something that it's like, oh, this is what created this character. Like for instance, when we saw Gray, we found out all the stuff with Deliora, and we saw her and everything that happened. If you don't have something in that, and again, you can pick any character really that has some darker past to use them. If you don't have that, something bad is going to happen to you in the future. There's always going to be that suffering for your character that ends up, giving that extra spice to their tale. And Wise, I think getting, well, one, it's going to be probably going to be better for him to have a robot arm, because, you know, it'll be useful for his machina maker, especially because he can only use the suit for such a short period of time, but some form of mechanical hand, like maybe he can be like I'm just thinking like Mega Man or Ezreal, or well, I guess Samus is a girl, but you know, sick gun arm. We'll see though. I do like Draken Joe, his appearance. He has similar vibes to me that I got from Zero of the Erasion Seis. He just has that, I'm a big threatening bad guy and you will listen. He's not someone like Hades who seemed to kind of have like some large scale like philosophical goal. He's not someone like Xerath who had this massive complicated spider web of a story. With Draken Joe, I think I feel like it's business and what he can do for his own empire. I don't think it's gonna be like, I'm gonna end up ruling the galaxy as like a criminal tyrant. I think in his idea for that, it would be like as a business, as just profit, as a name, not as a king, but as a captain of industry sort of thing. But other than that, comment below. Tell me your thoughts are about this chapter. It's a good thing. Usually, Mishima isn't like known for being like a big dark guy, but usually when he wants to get a little bit more serious, things get a little bit more dark and serious. So we'll give it a couple chapters, then we'll probably get back to some nicer vibes. But other than that, like I said, comment below, thumbs up the video, click on the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate it. Subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.